I'm putting it on blast. Defund the CBC is no longer enough. It is bankrupt the CBC, that is the Canada Broadcasting Corporation, and lock the CBC up in jail, period. But we're going to start with the American segue into this. Florida's got a new attorney general, and I like him. This is the Attorney General of Florida, and you'll see where I'm going with this. Stating the obvious. No men in women's spaces, period, unless you're freaking perverts or it's by consent of adults. No boys in girls' locker rooms, and sure as hell, no men in girls' locker rooms. It used to be, I'm old enough to remember, channeling Pepperidge Farms, where a man showing his ding-dong to a woman without permission was indecent exposure and was a crime. And now you're a bigot if you think a man shouldn't be showing his ding-dong to a woman who doesn't want to see it. Well, apparently a fitness center in Florida didn't get the memo.
Recently, my office became aware of a complaint against Lifetime Fitness in Palm Beach Gardens.
But this is also why I don't exercise in facilities. This is not why. I'm not that neurotic. I just don't like people looking at me when I exercise. I don't like talking to people when I exercise. Getting a phone call when I'm exercising is very, very irritating. I've turned into my mother, people. I call my mother. I know that she's on the treadmill. Why? Because she says, I'll call you back. I'm on the treadmill. Okay, I'm going to shut my big mouth here.
For putting women and girls at risk. Instead of following Florida's Civil Rights Act, they've decided to let men into women's locker rooms.
Perverts. Bankrupt them. Vote with your dollar. Bankrupt. Is it Planet Fitness?
That is wrong.
Yes, it
and
is.
We are not going to stand for it.
Thank you.
Let me be clear. Florida law protects spaces designated for women. No local ordinance or woke corporate policy can override that. Lifetime Fitness tried to hide
Sorry, not Planet Fitness. Lifetime Fitness.
Behind a misread county code, but the law is crystal clear. And so is my message. Men do not belong in women's restrooms or locker rooms, period.
There's a very, very funny pun in there. I don't know if he did it on purpose. Men do not belong in women's spaces, period. No? Okay.
Across the country, we've seen what happens when businesses ignore biology and common sense and bend to the trans activist agenda. We see assaults, exploitation, and fear. No business is going to be allowed to facilitate the invasion of women's restrooms and locker rooms. Not in Florida. Just as we are taking the fight to social media corporations for facilitating the exploitation of children, we will defend the safety, privacy, and dignity of women and girls. If Lifetime Fitness does not immediately reverse this dangerous policy, my office will take swift legal action. Florida is a law and order state, and we will not back down from the fight to keep this state safe, strong, and free.
I like this man already. This man speaks common sense. I also like Florida. It is a law and order state. It's also one hell of a free state. It is insanity. 39th Attorney General for the free state of Florida. How does he only have 18,000 followers? We're going to fix that right now, people. Go follow James Ootmeyer, tag him and say we say hello, and I would love to have James Ootmeyer as an interviewer. No, as an interviewee. I would love to interview James Ootmeyer. I'm going to reach out to him anyhow. Go follow him. 18,000 is criminally low amount of followers. And speaking of criminally, go after them, James. And I say criminally, and I also dare say civilly, because once upon a time, exposing your ding-dong to a young girl or a woman without consent was indecent exposure, and it was a crime. You know what would teach, what was it called, Lifetime Fitness, a lesson? A big, fat civil lawsuit. Oh, but you agree to the terms of service when you come to our gym. If that's going to be how the lawsuit gets dismissed, let it be. If they want to sink their business, let them do it through winning a lawsuit, but losing their business. You can see the way the free, logical, beautiful state of Florida is going. You can see to some extent the way the logical part of America is going. Women's rights are rights for women. They are not rights that can be co-opted by men and stolen by men, because these men think in whatever DSM mental condition that they have, that they are women. You can think that you're a woman, that's fine. You can think you're the Queen of England, that's fine. You're not going to get people to call you queen. You can think that you're a lawyer. You can identify as a lawyer, but if you were to ask people to call you Esquire and you weren't a lawyer, you wouldn't get any points because of how you identify. Whatever consenting adults want to do to themselves or among other consenting adults, more power to you. This is no longer about a consenting adult doing what he wants to his own body or doing what they want among consenting adults. This is now an imposing adult demanding of others what they see and where they hang, pun intended. America is clearly righting this ship, at least in certain states, the states that people actually want to live in. Canada, on the other hand, seems to be on the wrong trajectory of logic, science, and all things decent. There was a movement called DEFUND the CBC back in the day. It's CBC, Canada Broadcasting Corporation. It's a crown corporation that is funded by taxpayer dollars to the tune of $1.6 billion in direct funding between CBC and Radio-Canada, which is the French equivalent. Then you get ads, then you get, subsidies, all sorts of other indirect subsidies. The CBC put out an article. I don't want to get ahead of it. Right here, I want to start slowly. The CBC put out an article, and I'd like to thank my man up in Canada who sent this link to me. You know who you are. I don't want to identify you just in case you don't want to be identified. CBC, Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia is, you want to know what woke means? Nova Scotia is what we understand as woke. Not quite as woke as British Columbia, Victoria, where they have the menstrual equity flag that they flew at the Victoria City Hall. But Nova Scotia was the province where they got an injunction to prohibit outdoor protest, the purpose of which was to protest the COVID lockdown measures. They got an injunction from the court to prohibit outdoor protests to protest the COVID lockdown measures because of COVID. That's how woke and insane the province of Nova Scotia is. Nova Scotia, by the way, I believe it leads Canada in terms of the number of people dying in waiting rooms, hospital waiting rooms. Nova Scotia writes an article by Andrew Lamb. We'll get there. Nova Scotia Health works to expand access to youth gender-affirming care across province. In just over a year, clinics have opened in Kentville and Bridgewater. Written by Andrew Lamb, CBC News. Andrew Lamb looks like he's got very long hair based on this avatar. I'm not one to judge for obvious reasons. Nova Scotia Health works to expand access to youth gender-affirming care. Gender-affirming care is a euphemism for child genital mutilation. Period. Full stop. And by the way, this is going on CommuTube afterwards, and they can go suck a lemon if they have a problem with that. And not a beautiful, sweet Florida lemon. They can go suck one of those decrepit, shriveled up, sour, bitter Canadian lemons. Go suck a lemon. Youth gender-affirming care is child genital mutilation, full stop. Now let's read some of the article, by the way. I'm not quoting somebody, I'm quoting the article. The article writes, puberty blockers are a reversible treatment that temporarily stop the progression of puberty, providing a child with more time to explore their identity, for example, through clothing, without the distress that can come with going through developmental changes. Now, I read this the first time I read it. After I stopped seeing red for a second, I'm like, okay, they're not quoting anybody. So it's not as though the author is quoting a doctor. And then I'm like, oh, okay, so just go back here. Is this an opinion piece? No, this is not an opinion piece. And then I'm like, oh, maybe Andrew Lamb is also a doctor. No, Andrew Lamb is not a doctor. We'll get there in a second. And I'll read it again just so you can fully appreciate the unsolicited, unlicensed medical advice Andrew Lamb, via the CBC, just gave to Canada and children. Puberty blockers are a reversible treatment. Bullshit. That temporarily stop the progression of puberty. Temporarily block something that you only have a finite window of opportunity to go through is not reversible. Anybody who says that should be charged with disinformation. And if they're giving medical advice without having a license, they might, if I were a very aggressive prosecutor, I might think about charging someone under the laws of Canada for giving medical advice without being licensed. Puberty blockers are a reversible treatment that temporarily stop the progression of puberty, providing a child with more time to explore their identity, for example, through clothing, without the distress that can come with going through developmental changes. The blockers are not a new treatment, and have also been used for children who undergo puberty too early. This is where we get into full-on retardation. Sorry. No other way to say it. They cite the fact that you give puberty blockers to someone who's going through puberty too early, also known as precocious puberty, if I'm not mistaken, as the excuse to stopping it or pausing it. It's bullshit, by the way. Just stopping it, delaying it, fucking with it when it's supposed to happen. Why would you give something to someone to delay precocious puberty? I don't know the full medical justification for it, but delaying something so that it fits within the standard window of when it's healthy. I imagine going through puberty too early might not be good for bones. It might not be good for growth if you're growing too fast for the frame of an 8-year-old kid, for example. But delaying something so that it occurs within the generally recognized time frame is far different than delaying what is occurring in that generally acceptable time frame, and that is the only time frame in which it occurs. It doesn't occur when you're 20. It doesn't occur when you're 18. And if you delay it for a little bit too long until you feel quite comfortable, if they're like, oh wait, I don't feel quite so comfortable. Well, too freaking late. Now you got micropenis. Now you got bone density problems. Now you got a whole slew of lifelong problems, including sterility. So you want to go sterilize a child, give give them micro penis, cause them developmental delays so they can never have a proper orgasm in their lives, you belong in freaking jail. Which brings us to the author. Not a doctor. Who's the author? Andrew Lamb, reporter, associate producer. Andrew Lamb, she is an individual. I don't know which way this person is going. I have no idea. I don't care. But no one on God's green earth is ever going to be they if they are one person. Period. So this person, on the one hand, identifies as a woman. I presume that means he's a man. His name is Andrew. But he's not just one woman. She. This is a test in the patience of polite society. All right, you want to predict, dude, if you think you're a woman, I grew up with cross-dressers. We used to call them cross-dressers back in the day. Not in my immediate family, so I can't have stolen cross-dresser valor. Within our family circle, my family circle, then within my wife's family circle, we knew someone. I don't know if they actually went through with the surgery. No one asked a freaking question. They were an elderly couple, happily unionized, whatever it is. When someone says, I'm not only refer to me as a she if I'm born a man and I'm a man, that's fine. Now you are actually abusing of goodwill and abusing of patience and tolerance to coerce someone into that which is linguistically improper and batshit crazy, period. Chinese Canadian and trans reporter for CBC Nova Scotia. They are how many of them? They are interested. Are we still talking about Andrew? It's fucking insanity. This is absolute insanity. CBC News needs to be defunded and they need to be prosecuted for giving medical advice without having a medical license. Are interested in 2S LGBTQIA+ labor and data-driven stories. Well, let's go check out that data, shall we? Here's the article. By the way, I've sent him an email because I am very willing to be convinced I'm wrong. Andrew wants to take puberty blockers, cut off his, do the bottom thing. I couldn't care less in the most loving of ways possible. I don't care what adults do. Tattoos, piercings. I wouldn't necessarily do it to myself, although I'm tempted to contemplate a tattoo, but my father would absolutely be disappointed in me. You want to cut your tongue down the middle and make like one of those little slivery things? I've seen it. You want to stretch out your earlobes? It's up to you. You want to recommend this for children? Right to jail. Tell me why I'm wrong, Andrew. I wanted to click the link that says that they are reversible. How gender-affirming healthcare for kids works in Canada. Who wrote this one? Sheena Goodyear. This was the link for it being reversible. Gender-affirming healthcare, an approach that affirms gender identity, yada, 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 is endorsed by medical associations in Canada and around the world, including the Canadian Psychological Association and Canadian Pediatric Association. But did you notice what year this article is from? I don't know if I just mentioned it before we even got started. Here we go. You notice? The link to show that it's reversible is an article that will be 2 years old in November, a year and a half old. Have things changed? Has the science changed since then? The whole point of puberty blockers is that they are reversible. Some countries have placed restrictions on puberty blockers until their long-term effects can be better studied. England has restricted their use to minors enrolled in clinical trials, and the Norwegian Healthcare Investigation Board has recommended they be considered exploratory and experimental. Nothing better than experimenting on children, right? Cullum says they are widely considered safe, noting that they've been used for more than 40 years to treat precocious puberty, because this motherfucker doesn't want to understand the difference between delaying a premature puberty versus delaying the natural puberty. Jail. Puberty that starts too early and about 20 years of transition-related care. Some research has linked them to decreased bone density over time, so providers may limit how long a patient can take them, Sims said. Doctors also supplemented treatment with vitamins and dietary guidance. Can you imagine this? What level of biblical monstrosity are we living through where this is what they are saying is acceptable treatment for children? Yeah, we don't know what it does. We're fucking around with your bone density and your puberties, but don't worry, we've been using them for precocious puberties. So now let's use it for natural puberties, but you might have some bone density. So here's some vitamins and we'll see if we've irreparably messed up your body in a few years. Mengele. Dr. Mengele. This is Dr. Mengele level human experimentation. They just don't have mean German accents. They have nice, polite Canadian accents, eh? Patients can pull the plug anytime, even after their penis is irreparably shrunk. And their regular puberty will resume. Right to jail for whoever said that, for whoever reported it, and I won't say for whoever believes it. They can stop at any time. Puberty will resume. No, it won't. And it's known that it won't. So that's the evidence that this journalist for the CBC News cited to justify the claim that puberty blockers are reversible. An article from a year and a half ago that itself says that there are potential problems. Hormone therapy is partially reversible and involves prescribing hormones like estrogen or testosterone to help trans and gender diverse people to mutilate children and to mess with their physical characteristics for the rest of their lives. They've existed for a long time, and they are available and safe for youth to access, says Rebecca Mengele. Oh, sorry, no, it's Rebecca McDougall, a mental health clinician who sometimes refers patients and their families. Jail. That's what's going on in Canada. Tax dollars. Canadian taxpayers pay for that. So when they steal 50% of your income, like they did to me when I lived there, they use it to abuse you. They use it to lock you down. They use it to tyrannize you. They use it to censor you. And they use it to mutilate and abuse children and to propagandize the people into thinking that this is liberating and not a crime against humanity. Who said it? I believe in God, not because God has revealed himself, but because evil has revealed itself. It's like you listen to things like that and you look at what people are doing in the name of righteousness and you just hope to God there's a God, that there will be some form of cosmic retribution for this if there's not justice on this earth, because it would be too much to have to live with to think that this type of crime against humanity can go unpunished on this earth, and thus, if this is the only earth and this is the only life, unpunished. And so you hope, you pray to God that there's a God, and there is your truism for the day. All right, well, that's what's going on in Canada.